guy in the NBA should ever wear 23. I've been working on that shot my whole life, and for that one to go in, that was liberating right there, man.
And I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about
23 Shots of JD podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to 23 Shots of JD's new sort of mini-series, 30 and 10. Essentially, we break down 30 NBA teams 10 days before the season. If you're just catching this episode, we have definitely done other teams, 15 other teams, so that means 5 episodes 5 days prior. So definitely check it out. We did have a great guest, Craig from Razzball.com, so that was a very interesting episode. We did get to talk about some college hoops and stuff like that as well, on top of just breaking down some great teams. So if you don't see, maybe your team has not been broken down yet, it'll be definitely coming within a couple of days and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely check out for that. But enough for that. We'll just try and get straight into it. The first team we're probably going to break down is the Boston Celtics. So the Boston Celtics, what can you really say about them? They for a couple of years have been really in one of those top tier teams, making the Eastern Conference Finals quite consistently, you can say. And I think coming into last season, you thought there was a lot of promise, especially with the new signings with the signing of Gordon Hayward, and then on top of that, with trading Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie Irving. So really had a superstar, you had a star, 2 All-Stars basically, and then plus you had Al Horford, who was a former All-Star as well. And you thought there was a lot of promise, and as sort of the season transpires, you could see that there was a lot of promise, but all those sort of positive things that happened to the Celtics did not come. Also, they did come with some ramifications and stuff like that. So, as I mentioned, they signed Gordon Hayward, and he was sort of the big signing for the Celtics. He was sort of the next, obviously, white great hope, I guess, for Boston. Sort of mirroring that sort of Larry Bird type play. He is from Indiana himself, so definitely meant to mimic a type of Larry Bird, esque play, you could say. Definitely it's not going to be Larry Bird. No one's sort of expecting him to be Larry Bird at all, but definitely I think his game and what he was able to do at the Utah Jazz, and how he slowly progressed throughout his tenure there, and became sort of, like I said, an all-star in the West as well, might I add. He was an all-star in the West, so they signed him. He was going to be a really positive impact. He was going to have a really positive impact and be sort of their main focus at the small forward, power forward, shooting guard position. He really can play multiple positions, which is sort of what you can sort of see about him. And I think it's funny though, because like you look at him and you sort of just think, sort of there's all those pictures surrounding him with like that meme where it's like the boy, from dad to daddy and stuff like that. It's just like, oh god, he's very memeable. I would say Gordon Hayward, very memeable, and I guess sort of another memeable thing. I don't want to say memeable because it's very, very unfortunate, but obviously, as everyone would be aware, Gordon Hayward had that horrific injury in the first game of the NBA season against the Cavaliers, where basically his foot was, pointing west. It was pointing west, and it was probably one of the more disgusting things you've probably ever seen on a sporting field. I've seen, I watched it live when Anderson Silva broke his leg, and that was disgusting. I saw a guy break his arm live on a TV show. That was disgusting as well. But definitely what Gordon Hayward had to experience was even more disgusting, because there was just so much like randomness with it. No one knew what happened. And then when that iconic camera shot of him holding his knee, and then you see his foot, like I said, pointing it's pointing east. What? Yeah, sorry, it's pointing east. You're just like, geez, this is terrible. But it's obviously sucks for the Celtics season, because they already started at a disadvantage, you could say. Their marquee guy gets injured, or one of their marquee guys gets injured, and it sort of puts a bit of damp on what the Celtics could have done for the rest of the season. And as we'll get to, the season was still a success, but I guess who knows what could have happened if we had a healthy all-star level Gordon Hayward playing. But like I mentioned as well, they traded for Kyrie Irving in a sort of that sort of famous trade of Isaiah Thomas, and as sort of the story has been written, it seems that definitely the Celtics got the better end of the deal. Even though Kyrie Irving has some injury issues and injury woes, and that definitely carried over into the postseason where he just wasn't able to play in the playoffs. I think his superstar talent coupled with his championship caliber mentality really aided in sort of the Celtics proving to be, or wanted to become, one of those top tier players in the East. You know, I think Kyrie Irving sort of he's somewhat overrated but underrated at the same time. You know, like people sort of overrate him because, you know, they say like his stats and stuff don't really convey that of a superstar talent, but I think he's underrated because people look at his stats and say that, you know, he only averages this many points per game, this many assists. Like, when it was the Isaiah Kyrie Irving trade, they kept going like, oh, Isaiah Thomas and Kyrie Irving are really, you know, comparable, you know, irrespective of, you know, obviously their size or whatever. You know, Isaiah Thomas averaged more points, and I think they averaged similar assists. So people are going like, oh, Isaiah Thomas is a better player. And I think what's sort of proven to be known now that was completely a wrong way to look at things and how to view Kyrie Irving. I think even though there were some games where he only dropped 18 points and 7 assists, I think what he was able to impact on the plays and his sort of leadership capabilities really fostered this team environment that really believed in themselves and really grew together. So I think that was an amazing trade for the Celtics, and obviously everyone thinks it's an amazing trade. You got a bona fide superstar who's got his own flipping movie, man. This guy's pulling MJ moves, so you know that's pretty impressive. And you know they were able to trade for a superstar. They were able to sign a star, and at the same time they had the number 1 pick in the draft. And I think there was a lot of conjecture of what they were gonna do. This was still at the time when they had Isaiah Thomas, so it's like, are they going to try and, you know, pick Marco Fultz to try and show up maybe a point guard, shooting guard position? Who knows? Do they go with, you know, a small forward in Jason Tatum or Josh Jackson? Obviously, you know, Lonzo Ball was still in the mix as well. And I think because there was no bona fide star or no bona fide player that the Celtics wanted, they did sort of the most appropriate move, I think, of the draft, and they moved backwards to the 3rd spot, traded with the 76ers, was able to get an extra first-round pick, and then they were able to still pick the guy that they sort of wanted in Jason Tatum, which was, I guess, you know, as we can see now, was an amazing, amazing, amazing pick, because Jason Tatum's an absolute animal. This guy's an absolute beast, and I think what he was able to showcase in his rookie season, even though he didn't win Rookie of the Year, was just the potential of something special. This guy is just sort of the perfect build for a small forward, power forward position. He can shoot the 3 really well, put it on the floor, and I think as we sort of looked at his sort of maturity throughout the season, he was able to become more of a go-to scorer, more of a premier player within the sort of Brad Stevens system, and I think that's only going to grow day by day, year by year throughout his career, and he's going to be a fantastic, fantastic player. I think he's going to be he's sort of, you know, one of the new generation guaranteed all-stars. I think what he was able to produce last year was a sign of this guy is, I wouldn't say generational talent, but this guy's one of those players that you want, you need, and any team would love to have. And, you know, it seems that the Celtics do just what the Celtics do, and we're able to get another great draft pick in Jason Tatum. But sort of like I alluded to throughout the podcast so far, they did make it to the playoffs, they did make it to the finals, and that was without their 2 stars that they mentioned, without Kyrie Irving because of his knee issues, and then obviously Gordon Hayward not being able to recover in time with that gruesome leg injury. But they still made it into the finals with a really, really core young group. And even though I mentioned Tatum at the start as well being one of those critical people within the team, I think 2 other critical people that we really need to mention as well, Terry Rozier and oh God, why am I blanking on his name? I'll just say Brown for the moment. I apologize for not remembering your first name. God, I'm such an idiot. But yeah, obviously Terry Rozier had to step into the point guard position. A guard from Louisville, sort of similar mold to that Donovan Mitchell, and obviously I'm just comparing them because they're both from Louisville, but definitely a similar mold. And Terry Rozier definitely proved to be a really integral part of the team and showed that he's more than just a bench player, that he can really lead a team. And I think a lot of suitors in the NBA that are looking for a more stable point guard are looking at Terry Rozier as a possible option, especially when his sort of contract comes up. And that'll be an interesting situation with the Celtics that arises. And the other player is Jaylen Brown. I got your name, buddy. Jaylen Brown. He took another step as well. I remember in his draft just only, it would have been 3 years ago now. There was a lot of conjecture about him. Obviously, Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram were the top 2 picks and the top 2 clear picks. But then from anywhere down there, it was just really a random cluster of people that no one really knew how to pick. They ended up picking Jaylen Brown at the number 3 position. People sort of were, intrigued by the pick. Really solid play, from Cal at Berkeley. Sort of can play the shooting guard, a small forward position. I think that's the problem as well. People sort of saw him as a more small forward type individual, but with his size at only 6'6", I think people were a bit wary of that. But he was able to prove in his rookie season that he was a really solid and comparable player, and then coming into his sophomore season, he was able to really showcase that he is a really, really top tier talent, a solid player. And I think defensively is where he's going to be making most of his money. He's a dog on the defensive end and super athletic, and can really put the ball on the floor and shoot the 3-pointer. So he definitely what they were able to build. If you look at the team, at the end of last season, they had Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, Aaron Baines. They had a lot of great players, and even though the 2, I guess, quote-unquote top players weren't able to show up for the playoffs, they were able just to, with their team. And obviously got to mention the coach Brad Stevens, obviously got robbed of Coach of the Year. That's probably another conversation for another day. But, Brad Stevens and his system is just able to just have every player thrive, and irrespective of their sort of role or their position in the team, when they need to step up, Brad Stevens expects them to step up, and they step up accordingly. So, a great season by the Celtics last year, and they're definitely going to try and replicate that success coming into this season, hopefully with a full list of guys that, hopefully there's just no injuries at all. They did some off-season moves. They were able to draft Robert Williams from Texas A&M. And at the time, I think people could see it as a potential steal. I think they still see it as a potential steal, even though he showed up late to his own press conference. But, I think people saw him as, at one point was a top 10 sort of talent, moved to a more top 15, top 20, and then he ended up dropping all the way to the late 20s. And he has a lot of potential value, and I think at the center position where the Celtics sort of not lacking, but could really shore up and improve at. I think Robert Williams is someone that could really develop in the future, and I think he's super athletic, works hard on defense, and I think when he's called upon, I don't think he will get a lot of rotation minutes coming into this season, but I think when called upon, he'll definitely try and do his best and stuff like that, and that's all you can really ask from a rookie player. So, good on him. Also, they re-signed Aaron Baines again to try and show up the middle. Aaron Baines somehow added a 3-point shot in the playoffs. I don't know when that happened. Shout out to the Aussie, but when did he end it? When did he shoot threes? When did he shoot threes? When did he shoot threes? It's Brad Stevens, man. He's played, and the player development coach at the player development staff at the Celtics is just ridiculous to get Bainesy shooting threes. And also, I think one of the sort of more big things that they were able to do as well was able to keep Smart. I think he ended up signing his qualifying offer because no real suitors were out there. And I think the Celtics were willing to lose Smart, especially because they had Terry Rozier there. But I think what Smart brings defensively is ridiculous. Somehow his plus minus is one of the best on the teams, yet he scores no points. Offensively, he sucks. His 3-point shots really, really sporadic. And he can sort of put it on the floor. He's he's really just like a Tony Allen. He's really a Tony Allen type player. So, we'll see what happens with Smart. I think he'll probably stay with the team and maybe re-sign somewhere else, or who knows what the Celtics are going to do with sort of their guard positions, because I think they have a lot of money that they want to go to certain places, and then they have a lot of money needed in certain places. So, we'll sort of see how that's going to progress throughout the season. But what should we expect this year? I think. We'll sort of get through later in the podcast with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think the pathway is there for them to really push for the finals. I think they have a team that, as they showed last season, the last couple of seasons, can make the finals at ease. And obviously, when they came against LeBron James, that sort of faltered. But I think with no LeBron James there, I think they've very much are the clear favorites to be in the finals, and a lot of people even having them winning the title. They think they have the team to beat the Warriors, which I'm not gonna say they do. I think the Warriors just have a freak team, and especially when DeMarcus Cousins comes back, I think that changes the whole dynamic of how you should view the Golden State Warriors. But I think nevertheless the Celtics should and will make the finals, and I think it's going to be amazing for the growth of their young players, people like Jason Tatum, Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown. You know, they have a lot of young players. You know, Kyrie Irving's not even that old. Gordon Hayward, sort of a veteran of the team, is not even that old either. I think they have a really young team that's going to develop and be a really strong force in the East for many years to come. As I mentioned with Hayward, I think this season is going to be sort of his redemption story. I think a lot of people have not written him off, but I think with the rise of, you know, players like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, people sort of just don't think that the need for Gordon Hayward is really there. And I think Gordon Hayward's going to come back. It's definitely going to have a slow start. It's going to be rusty. You know, we've seen it in the preseason that he's really hasn't been fully up to standard, but, you know, nevertheless, we'll see, you know, throughout the season that Hayward's going to develop, grow, get used to the game again, and I think he's going to really prove that the Celtics need him. I'm going to be honest. I think he's going to prove that the Celtics really need him on the team. And when they play like one of those death lineups, when you have Kyrie Irving, Brown, you have Hayward, Tatum, and Horford all at the same time, that's a deadly combination nonetheless. So definitely. And like I said, as I sort of mentioned before, Kyrie Irving has a championship caliber. You know, obviously, people like Skip Bayless and stuff like that like to say that he won the Cavaliers a championship. I wouldn't go that far, but he definitely was an integral part of the Cavaliers winning their first championship. In a long time and stuff like that. So I think can Kyrie Irving take them to the promised land? I think so, but you know, again, we'll see. And I think one thing we should also notice with the Celtics, have a lot of pieces. You know, they still have draft picks. You know, they have a lot of young players, like I said, Brown and Rozier, that might be looking to get more money in the future. So, you know, who knows? We could see maybe a big potential trade. Anthony Davis, you know, a lot of players. You know, there's a lot of players on the market that maybe the Celtics might want to look to and trade to just to solidify their spot in the finals. So, definitely, Celtics is a team that you want to keep an eye on and just make sure that, you know, look to. That was a weird way to sort of end it. But I'll move on to the Philadelphia 76’ers. The 76’ers, what a resurgence. I think from a perennial tanking team, you know, they always wanted to get less than 20 wins, and out of nowhere now, it worked. It worked. It's proven that what they've done has completely worked. And that's been catalyzed by, you know, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons winning Rookie of the Year, obviously sort of controversially, I guess, because is he technically a rookie? I don't know. That's sort of debate. I'm an Australian fan, so I'm going to say he's a rookie because an Australian won Rookie of the Year. He's a rookie. But obviously we sort of rise of Ben Simmons and what he was able to prove. You know, obviously moving aside, you know, he's not able to shoot any perimeter shots at all. Besides all of that, he was able to do everything else. Rebound the ball, find open teammates, get assists. He was able to even think like he averaged like 15 points per game without even able to shoot a 3-point shot. You know, this guy's ridiculous. Like, he's insane. He's big. He's a big point guard, and he's just always going to have these mismatch options. I think he's got that type of athleticism that is really adaptable to the NBA game. And I think, you know, I guess, you know, maybe him growing up playing AFL and stuff like that maybe fostered his ability to have that type of pin the ears back mentality and run down the line. But, you know, Ben Simmons definitely proved to be a really, really, really great draft pick. You know, obviously a generation talent. He's going to be special. He's going to be special. I am concerned that he's a bit doing too much media. You know, he was sort of on a world tour run. You know, he had that sort of TV show, I think, that's coming out with LeBron. He's got that Beats endorsement and stuff like that. It's sort of, you know, he's maybe the sort of prime highlights a bit too much at the moment for him, and I'd rather him focus purely on basketball. But that's obviously just my opinion as a straight purist. But as I mentioned as well, Joel Embiid having a ridiculous season. I think a lot of people were weary of if he could play a full season, and obviously he didn't play a full season, but he played more games than he's ever played before. and in the games that he played, he was, so influential. It's ridiculous. Like, when he plays, he's the best. I will say, when he plays, he's the best big man in the game. He cannot be stopped offensively in the block. He can shoot threes. He can pass out. He can rebound. He can defend. He can really do everything. And it's insane to see that someone who's had these injury woes for so many years has been able to do what he's doing. If you're talking about just game experiences, he just doesn't have a lot, and he's already an all-star. He's probably, I guess, with Ben Simmons the face of the franchise, he's just a ridiculous player. Obviously, sort of his social media antics and stuff like that have propelled him more into sort of this into the pop culture, I could say. But I think he would always be at this level of sort of stardom and fame just with his play alone. He really is a really special, and he is a generational talent. And I used that twice, just referencing the 76ers, so you could sort of see where their potential lies. But like I said, they exceeded initial expectations. I think people just wanted them to try and make the playoffs, especially in the East. I think they wanted them just to scrape into the 8th and 7th seed. But then as the year progressed, and it showed how great this team is, especially with the veteran leadership of JJ Redick. They obviously have Rocco, Covington, solid small forward. Another young star I should mention, Dario Saric, having a bit of a great year. Obviously rebound, in his sort of sophomore year. I guess again he's sort of technically not a rookie. I don't know. It's weird, these rookie situations. So technically he's a sophomore, but I think as people realized the ceiling of this team, they had renewed expectation. I think they wanted them to make the finals, and obviously they got knocked out by the Celtics in the second round. But I think it's definitely something to build upon, considering that this is a team that has not made the playoffs in like 6-7 years or something like that, ever since the Drew Holiday, Andre Iguodala days. So definitely a special season for the 76ers, and a great building block for them to develop themselves in the future. But obviously, with all these positive things that happened with the 76ers, we can't talk about what happened with Philadelphia without mentioning one of the more prominent stories surrounding them, and that's the whole Markelle Fultz situation. So he got injured in Summer League, if I'm not mistaken. He gets injured in Summer League, and then for some reason he's still injured. I think it's sort of one of those Kawhi mystery injuries with his leg. And then somehow at the same time, post-Summer League, he starts changing his jump shot. And then all these videos and clips of his jump shot start circulating. And it looks like the guy just has been drugged and he doesn't know how to play basketball again. His jump shot looks disgusting. And it was sort of just became the meme. It's just like, man, this guy's a bust without even playing because his jump shot looks ugly. He sort of it just doesn't look right. And so it did not look right. And I think if you're a 76ers fan, you'd be super concerned because not only was he injured, but then somehow changes his jump shot and what he was going to be known for. They picked him because he could shoot the three. He could shoot perimeter shots like he did at Washington, and then he could dribble, drive, do he's sort of meant to be a James Harden type. He either goes for layups or he goes for 3-point shots. But obviously, if you have a shitty 3-point shot, that's definitely not going to happen at all. So. That whole Markelle Fultz jumper situation was just a complete issue, and it sort of surrounded the whole Philadelphia season forever. And even though when he came back, he dropped the triple-double and all that stuff, obviously inflating his stats and all that. Okay, I see you, Philadelphia, I see you. But obviously, all the sort of drama stuff surrounding him is going to really lead into this season. And we've already seen that there's in the preseason stuff that there is improvements to his to his form, but it's, in my opinion, still very suspect. So, the story has not been written on Markelle Fultz's jump shot, but it's sort of like like I mentioned, I sort of summarized, the whole process, you could call it, just really worked. And I think it showed a lot of teams. It showed NBA GMs and stuff like that. Like, geez, this might be the way to go. Just suck for a long time and just make sure that you could, get some great draft picks. So I think Philadelphia is probably the only team that could do that because they drafted at one of the best times to draft. They get, Ben Simmons' generational talent. I think they get sort of lucky with Joel Embiid because he got injured and then he dropped in the draft. So, obviously, I think no one expected this from Joel Embiid, but I think getting Ben Simmons with a big coup, we get Sarge and stuff like that, and it all worked out. I think going on with Sarge and on top of that, Robbie Covington and JJ Redick, as I mentioned, they were all able to play great, meaningful roles and really influence the team greatly. On top of being sort of a supporting cast, you could say, with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and that's why sort of this season panned out the way it is, and will maybe look like to develop even further this season. But I guess changes in the summer. They had they drafted Mikal Bridges, and it was sort of the perfect story. His mum works at the Philadelphia front office and stuff like that. He's from Philadelphia. He went to Villanova. It's just sort of the perfect story. And then that just went neck minute. They trade down, get Zahir Smith. On top of that, they get an extra first-round pick, and unfortunately, Zahir Smith is injured at the moment, so we just don't. Again, it just seems that how do the 76ers draft picks always get injured? They always are religiously injured. I don't understand this. I just don't understand it. I don't know if this is like the hustle that Philadelphia uses just so that they can sit out a year and get development or whatever, but I don't know. They seem to always draft someone and they get injured. But like I said, they drafted Zahir Smith from Texas Tech. Super athletic guy. He was sort of one of the new faces for Puma as well. So I think he's got people think he has that sort of type of talent. I guess you can say maybe star talent or something like that. But definitely a super athletic player. I think defensively he'll be good, and I think he'll fill a decent role. I think he'll play some rotation minutes. Maybe him and Fultz coming off the bench, maybe in the second unit, could be a bit of an issue as well. So I think a decent pick. I think Mikal Bridges was more ready to play, more ready to influence the team greatly, but maybe the Philadelphia 76ers don't see themselves in much of a rush, and they're willing to take a fly on someone like Zahir Smith, who has probably a higher ceiling than Mikal Bridges. But at the moment, it's probably not the same level as Mikal Bridges. So, another thing they did was re-sign JJ Redick, which I think was a good pickup to do. A good thing to do. Obviously, at the shooting guard position, he's a man that you want for 3-point shooting. I think, especially with a team that lacks 3-point shooting at the guard position, Fultz, Simmons included. I think they really needed him. He spreads the floor. He gives that constant threat and allows people like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to operate in the paint, because there was always that constant feel of someone like JJ Redick shooting the three. And on top of that, just some veteran savviness and just experience as well that a young team really needs. So definitely gives everything that he sort of provides everything that the 76ers have missed. And considering that he's familiar with the system as well, it just sort of all works out perfectly. Another big thing that they were able to do as well was trade for Wilson Chandler. So I think that's a very underrated move. They were able to get Wilson Chandler and sort of build that forward depth that they sort of have been, I guess, missing. Obviously, when Covington comes off the field, or Sarge, they seem to not be able to have the type of forwards that are going to be conducive to being productive. And I think signing someone like Wilson Chandler, who's at this point you could say very much a veteran type guy, especially in that team. He knows how to score. Defensively, he's sound. Is he going to be a person that moves the needle? I wouldn't say so, but I think, again, he can shoot the three, and he'll provide another option, for Brett Brown to use. I think he could even have potential to start. Who knows what lies for Wilson Chandler, but I think nonetheless a solid trade, and we'll sort of just see how that's going to progress throughout the season. But in addition, they signed the Aussie Jonah Bolden, another Aussie in the NBA. Let's go! Shout out to Jonah Bolden, a guy from in New South Wales, Sydney. I knew some people that even played with him in the younger years and stuff like that. In sort of a unorthodox journey to the NBA. He played high school ball at one of the premier academies in America. Then he moves on to UCLA for 2 years, and then he just doesn't seem to be working the UCLA system. So then he goes to Europe, plays I think 1 or 2 years in Europe, then gets drafted. He gets drafted, but then he stays in Europe, and then finally, the 76ers sign him to a decent contract. And now, excuse me, now he's on the team. So just great to see another Aussie in the team. Jonah Bolden, I think, again, going to show up that that forward position. I think he can even play the 4 or the 5. He can shoot the 3 decently. What I've seen in the preseason, he's got to work on his free throw shooting, which is a given for any sort of young NBA player. Free throw shooting is probably not one of the things they focus on, and they realize it's probably one of the more important things that they got to get down pat. But shout out to Jonah Bolden being signed, and if Philadelphia 76ers fans don't really know him, you know him soon. I think he's going to get really he's going to be really valuable in the coming years, and you realize that that Aussie connection with Ben Simmons and Jonah Bolden is going to be ruthless. So shout out to Ben, shout out to Jonah Bolden, and I'll sort of just mention the Colangelo saga and him subsequently leave. I don't want to get into it because it's I don't think it's going to really affect anything coming this season, but obviously there's all that drama and stuff like that. So it's unfortunate to hear that even though the 76ers have a great season, they still have this type of drama surrounding him as well. And we mentioned it previously in the podcast a bunch, and you probably read about it all the time. So definitely don't want to bore you with just reflecting on something that's really been in the media for way too long. But I guess what we should expect from the 76ers, I think much like the Celtics, they're going to aim for a final spot. I think, again, mentioning with no Cavs, another team's going to face the Celtics, and I think it's definitely going to be the 76ers. And I think getting that experience of playing them in the second round is going to be valuable because they understand, you're just getting more reps than them playing. The more you play someone, the more you understand their tendencies, and the more you're able to adapt and be able to build upon that. And they always say that, you either win or you learn in the NBA, and in regards to that, you obviously either win or you learn, because when you lose, you able to learn from your mistakes and able to learn how they play and how you can attack sort of what their weaknesses were throughout the game as well. So definitely expect the 76ers to be fighting for a final spot. I think with their young core, they have a lot of potential to be a strong force. I think it's going to be that classic 76ers Celtics rivalry that we've been accustomed to in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. It's great to see a re-emergence, sort of that Eastern Conference mainstream teams, I guess you could say, of rising. And I think with the future development of, obviously, Ben Simmons is going to be better in his second season. Joel Embiid, I don't know if he can get better because he's already at an insane level. Obviously, I think Sarge is going to improve. You're going to get actual contributions from Bolt. Obviously, you got Roko. You got Wilson Chandler, who's another forward option. So a lot of great players that they were able to grab are going to probably be a influential part of the team's development and success in the future. But I think they want to prove that they're going to be the best in the East, and I think again, sort of the storyline is sort of paired with the Celtics, and it's really just going to be the 76ers and the Celtics, in my opinion, throughout the whole season. Who's going to come out in the East? And I think as we see, if we can see people on the 76ers, like I said, mentioned Marco Fultz, have great contribution, I think it's going to go a long ways into trying to defeat that really deep Celtics lineup that they have. But I guess sort of reiterating on Fultz, I think it's going to be, again, a redemption year, sort of similar to Gordon Hayward. I think he wants to prove people that he was worthy of being a number one pick and that he's not going to be a bust. I think his shooting, he will also be sort of unconfident in his shot, but I think he'll be able to contribute in other ways. He's a really great passer. He can drive into the lane really effectively. Like I mentioned, it was compared to James Harden. He can throw those bows around, try and get fouls and stuff like that. But expect sort of a redemption season for Marco Fultz. But I guess moving onto a team that we've already mentioned a lot with the Celtics and the 76ers, and that's the Cavs. And we mentioned them because we sort of mentioned the Cavs not in really a positive light at all, because I guess we'll sort of go through the whole history of the Cavs up to this point, but basically review of last year. Again, they're going to try and fight for the finals. When you have LeBron James, I think you're always going to be in the position to fight for the finals. So they did that, and as I mentioned with the Celtics as well, they had that big trade for Kyrie Irving and IT, and it sort of proved to be, it was a terrible mistake because IT didn't even last the whole season. But at the time, like I mentioned, people thought IT was better than Kyrie. He averaged more points. They averaged the same assists. He's less injury prone. There's all these sort of factors relating that IT was better than Kyrie. So obviously, hindsight's 2020, but it sort of I think it was a decision that didn't need to be made immediately, and I think if the GM and the whole organization of the Cavaliers sort of looked back at it, I think they would have thought that maybe they should have held off, sort of like what maybe the Timberwolves are going to do with Jimmy Butler or whatnot. So definitely, I guess just a poor thing that they did. I guess regular season, they had a really average regular season, and I think that was sort of a catalyst for how LeBron was viewing the team. I think obviously there's been this sort of thing about that the regular season doesn't matter for for teams in the NBA and stuff like that. And I think they definitely did cruise control, but they were really concerted. They lost to some pretty bad teams. Like I think they lost to Orlando. They've lost to the Brooklyn Nets and stuff like that. And it's like, geez, you really should be putting these guys away. And LeBron was playing big minutes as well. He was playing massive minutes. I think he played the most minutes in the league nearly. So, they really did LeBron to step up there, and they had a pretty mediocre regular season. And I think on top of that, there was sort of a lot of rumors surrounding if LeBron's going to leave. Obviously, it was his last year of his contract, and it didn't really look like that the Cavaliers were putting their best foot forward and trying to persuade him to come back. I think they tried to do a lot of moves to try and get, I guess, LeBron interested in coming back on the team. They traded for Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance. They got George Hill and they got Rodney Hood and stuff like that, which obviously didn't work out at all. But I guess, that did really entice LeBron to leave. And, obviously he left. He just left. And just left him in the dust, which you could blame them. Who can blame him? He left, and sort of the Cavaliers are just going to be sort of in that, weird no man's land zone, I think. But sort of reviewing again on last year, they made the finals nonetheless with the whole drama about if LeBron's going to leave and the team just not being that good at all. They still made the finals. They got swept. They got destroyed. But maybe they couldn't. Maybe they didn't have to get swept if that whole infamous J.R. Smith mistake did not happen. Obviously now he's in the news again with that whole Supreme leg tattoo. But J.R. blew it, I guess. He blew it. Like, it wasn't bad because it's not like he lost the game. Like they still made it to overtime, so the Cavaliers had all, they still had the potential to win the game nonetheless. But I think you could even tell on LeBron's face that he knew that defeat was coming, and that if they were able to win game one, like that could have been sort of a changing the dynamics of the finals. Who knows? But as we know now, that didn't happen. JR fucked up, and now we see LeBron on a different team basically. So, and I guess I do want to mention sort of the Kardashian curse maybe erodes again a little bit. There was the whole Tristan Thompson drama about his sex tape and all that stuff, him cheating on his wife, which obviously didn't seem to affect them because I think they're still together, stronger than ever. Maybe, who knows? That's how the Kardashians roll. I guess they just move with the punches, but. I guess you should mention that whole Tristan Thompson drama because he sucked. He sucks so much. These guys are going to 5 year. He was like, 4 years, $70 million, some shit. And he sucks. He can't do anything. He's too short for the center position. He can't, do anything offensively. He can rebound a little bit. Defensively, he's okay. He just sucks. I don't like him as a player. And as I mentioned, with LeBron leaving, even prior to that, it was sort of just Cavaliers fans realized it was the end of the road, and cue the boys to men. They realized that this was their last opportunity, and they fluffed it. And I think they just accepted that LeBron was going to leave, really with no harsh feelings, because he was able to still deliver a championship nonetheless. So that sort of leads to sort of what their changes in the off season. Again, it was bye LeBron. He moves to the other side of the country, and they leave with a massive void of just no superstar. They did have that. I think it was the number 7 draft pick that was sort of floating around that they might have used to trade to try and entice again LeBron to stay, but they ended up keeping it and picking Colin Sexton, point guard from Alabama, the young bull as people like to call him. It's super intense player. I love his play. He's a consistent scorer as well. I think there was only 2 times in college where he didn't score over 10 points. So he's a consistent scorer, works hard, plays hard. And I think he definitely could be a sort of future point guard for the Cavaliers. I think he's someone that you might want to build around. I think he sort of has that sort of Terry Rozier type of mentality and game So, I think Colin Sexton has a lot of potential. Maybe he won't be a superstar, but I think he'll be a solid player to a star level caliber player. So, definitely Sexton's going to be someone to look to and see how he progresses. I wouldn't be surprised if he could be sort of a favorite for the rookie, he could, not favorite, he could be a smoky for the rookie of the year, because he'll be definitely getting minutes. And, the team's they're decent, he's going to be getting some assists and stuff. So, shout out to Sexton, man, the young ball legend. I think the big thing that the Cavaliers did in the summer was giving that Kevin Love that big extension. And I think that solidified him as being the face of the franchise. And people forget, Kevin Love was a beast before he came to the Cavaliers. He was like a 20-20 guy with the Timberwolves. And even though it sort of looked like it was an empty stats type of player, because they never made the playoffs or whatnot, he still averaged a lot of points and a lot of rebounds and stuff like that. Like his game, he was electric when he was sort of the singular focus. And I don't be surprised if we can expect that similar type of Kevin Love to arrive at the Cavaliers. And I think plus on top of sort of his finals experience, his winning type of mentality that he was able to build at the Cavaliers, I think that's going to improve him even more, because obviously, the Timberwolves, they had a whole history of losing. So it'd be hard to sort of change the whole franchise around and make it a history of winning, So I think him being accustomed to winning, and then coupled with sort of what he's been able to produce in the past and what he should be able to produce now, especially being more fitter, more skillful. Definitely look at Kevin Love to sort of have a renaissance of a season, you could say. Again, he's going to be the face of the franchise. He's going to be there maybe, at least for this year, who knows, maybe there's going to be some trading and stuff like that. I don't know what sort of the direction the Cavaliers want. But, at least for this season, and that's going to sort of move to me sort of summarizing the Cavaliers, I think they still want to be very competitive. I think they want to be competitive. They still want to fight for the playoffs. I don't think, obviously, they're going to be a top 4 team, but, who knows? They could sort of scrape into that 8th, 7th position. Like I said, they still have Kevin Love. He's a superstar type talent. You got the young bull. You have some great solid players. I think it'll be a pivotal year for Rodney Hood. I think Rodney Hood has a lot of questions needing to be asked, and I think if he can produce well at his position, he's going to go a long way to the Cavaliers being a sort of more playoff viewed team. So, they have a lot of solid players, like I mentioned, Nance, Clarkson, Hill. Just a lot of solid players who, could still probably do a job on some teams in the Eastern Conference, because, the Eastern Conference still sucks ass. So, I think they'll still be competitive. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, even though I'm sort of talking about this. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, so sort of maybe contradictory, but I think they'll still be very competitive, and they're not going to be they're not going to be looking to tank. Maybe if someone gets injured, like Kevin Love or even the young bull gets injured, I think they might want to lean towards that way, but I think that nevertheless, they're going to try and fight for the playoffs and try and keep that sustained excellence that maybe Dan Gilbert and the Cavs have sort of been accustomed to. But I think it'll be a sort of a testing year for Tyronn Lue as well. I think his coaching abilities have been able to be how you could sort of hidden because of the power of LeBron James, and it's going to really show if Tyronn Lue's a really good coach or not, basically. So, be a big year for Tyronn Lue. Like I said, we're going to probably see vintage Kevin Love, as I like to say, chubby Kevin Love, because that was vintage Kevin Love, the old chubster. I think he'll be back and playing and firing on all cylinders. And as I mentioned before, I think Sexton could be a smoker for Rookie of the Year. If he's, I don't know what the betting odds are, but if he's on a sort of good odds, I wouldn't be surprised, if someone might want to take him. I think he definitely could be someone that could be Rookie of the Year. But I finish it there. Obviously, I try to sort of mention a lot of Eastern Conference teams, the Celtics, 76’ers, and the Cavs, because the Eastern Conference, again, is sort of wide open. The Cavs, sort of LeBron James has been a mainstay there with the Miami Heat and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think there's a lot of room for teams, like I said, the Celtics or the 76’ers, and I think, as I mentioned soon, maybe the Bucks, or I mentioned before, the Indiana Pacers, to really make some moves. So definitely a wide open Eastern Conference, and it'll be interesting to see how the season progresses with these teams that are really fighting for that, not only for the number 1 position for the final, but the Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals position as well. But besides that, tune in tomorrow, because again, like I said, it's 30 and 10. We're breaking down 30 teams every day for 10 days before the NBA season. So definitely a new episode before. As I mentioned, I've broken down 15 other teams before, so maybe I broke down your team if you haven't seen. If your team wasn't mentioned this episode, I definitely might have broken down your team last episode as well. So definitely check that out. But besides that, let you guys go. Bye!